I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and this is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm taking the taboos of menopause and perimenopause and bringing light to the dark. No bullshit, no shame. It's time for us to gain a new paradigm in female health, out with the old and in with the new, and I'm bringing fresh perspectives from someone in the arena. I've been practicing women's health for nearly 20 years, and I'm spilling the tea on what it means to live at midlife, knowing that the best is yet to come. I'm sharing my Gen X approach to living through this transition. Sassy, a bit sweary, and always honest. Tactical tips and instantly usable information is my aim. I hope to make you laugh and that you learn something new that helps you embrace the change. Together, we bring power to the peri. Onward to the podcast. Hello, listeners. Dr. Fiona Lovely here. And you know those moments in life where you come across somebody and their frequency, their appearance, their data, their information seems so familiar to you? It strikes such a bell in your soul and you go, I need to know who that is. Well, that was my experience the first time I encountered our guest today, Lisa Kilgour, holistic nutritionist, speaker, educator, and author. When I saw a video she did on Instagram quite a few months ago now, literally stopped me in my tracks, and I thought, I have got to have this goddess on the show. So today is that conversation. Lisa Kilgour is a registered holistic nutritionist and a sought-after speaker, educator, and author who helps people heal from diverse and complex health issues. In 2015, she spoke at TEDx Kelowna on the gut-brain connection and was voted BC's favorite nutritionist by Natural Healthcare Canada. Her book, Undieting, Freedom from the Bewildering World of Fad Diets, was released in September 2020. First of all, please go follow Lisa on TikTok and Instagram. She has wonderful short form videos that are so educational and so helpful. But we had this very broad ranging conversation today where we really dug into some of the pieces, the confusing pieces around body, the experience of being in our bodies and how we nourish and nurture and fuel our bodies and how we were not taught very well to do that by our mothers who didn't know either. They certainly had to learn it themselves and sometimes didn't get great information along the way. But Lisa talked about cravings being such important information for what our bodies are trying to do, how carb craving is different than salt craving, is different than chocolate craving. And paying attention to those cravings is a really great window into what our body is actually looking for. She and I talk about hypoglycemia and blood sugar issues for everyone, not just for diabetes, for diabetics. This is a really relevant conversation for many of us, essentially all women in perimenopause, and how we both feel so liberated by the experience of eating for strength instead of eating for thinness. Now, one of the things that Lisa and I talked about today was how we can manage to get this 120, 130, 150 grams of protein a day. Because I don't know if y'all been trying to do that, but I just don't have that kind of an appetite. I don't think I did when I was even in my 20s. There's no way I'm getting anywhere close to putting 5 chicken breasts worth of meat protein in my body every day. It's just not happening. And Lisa shares some really wise advice about this. And I tell you, after I was done this conversation, I went right downstairs and had myself a bowl of granola. Now, yes, it's gluten-free. But I was like, you know what? Probably yesterday I would have been like, no, you got to have something with protein in it. And of course, my granola has some of that. But what I love is she said, let's not vilify the carbs. The carbs are such an important thing for our sleep, for our hormonal health. And when we focus too much on one of the macros, which we tend to do, and right now at this time it's protein, something else gets squeezed out. And It's all there in balance. This was such an interesting conversation to me. Lisa shared so much wisdom. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. I tell you, I learned a ton, and I feel lighter because of the permission she gave me around food. So, without further ado, here is the conversation between me and Lisa Kilgour, registered holistic nutritionist. Let's talk about something incredibly important: your heart health. You probably already know the stark statistic. Heart disease is the #1 cause of death in the United States. Now, it's widely understood that men develop heart disease earlier in life than women. But what you might not know is that this difference starts to change as women age. By the age of 65, women begin to develop heart disease at the same rate as men. Why does this happen? Well, the sources tell us that declining estrogen levels play a significant role. Estrogen has a profound impact on our cardiovascular system. It actively improves our cholesterol levels, keeps inflammation down, increases crucial blood flow around the body, and even helps to reduce damaging free radicals. Think of estrogen as a vital protector for your heart. It's important for our heart health, too, to take minerals. Certain minerals, such as magnesium and boron, are highlighted as being essential nutrients that our hearts and bodies need to function at their peak performance. When your mineral levels drop, it can lead to a decline in both your estrogen levels and your overall heart health. This is why I'm so enthusiastic about my partnership with Beam Minerals. They have formulated a fantastic way to make getting your daily electrolytes and essential minerals absolutely effortless. Forget about cumbersome pills or messy powders. Beam Minerals offers a simple solution. Just a small shot each day provides your body with the natural, plant-based support it needs. Ready to take proactive steps for your heart health and overall well-being? Head on over to beamminerals.com and don't forget to use my special code LOVELY to receive a fantastic 20% off your first order of Beam Minerals. That's LOVELY. Thanks, Beam. This is the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast. I'm Dr. Fiona Lovely, and I'm joined today with Lisa Kilgour from BC, another Canadian. Yay! Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Lovely.
Oh, it's really my pleasure. And you are a registered holistic nutritionist and author and speaker and general badass. Is that right?
That's a really good way of summing it up. Yes, exactly. That's how I want to be described from this point forward.
I love it. I love it. Well, I have a story that I actually want to sort of open our conversation with. But before we do, let's just get a little bit of context. By the way, I forgot to mention to you when we had our pre-chat, my great grandmother's last name was Kilgour.
No way. There's very few of us.
Yes, and this was in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. So, and that was, yes, she remarried after her first husband passed. So the Kilgour that she married was not a blood relative, but anyways, Scotland. He was Scottish, so I can tell you
Scottish.
that.
Yeah.
Good. We might just get into that. Okay. Anyways, so tell me a little bit, please. I found you on Instagram one day and I went, who is this goddess? And how did I not know about her beforehand? And now I need to know all the things. But please, from your own mouth, please tell us, how did you find yourself as a holistic nutritionist and taking care of women in midlife, please?
I started as a musician. So my undergrad is performance music and I play the flute. And I was in a really, really stressful program and I wasn't well when I went into it. And I got so much more unwell as I was going through it. I had nerve damage down both my arms, tendonitis in both my thumbs, and asthma that was uncontrollable, but it wasn't deadly. But I play the flute. Yeah. So I'd walk into every rehearsal and the stress of it would trigger an asthma attack. And my inhalers would make me shake so badly I couldn't play. And so I always, like, it was just torture. By the end
Wow.
of that schooling, I had 3 jobs. I was full-time in school, and I was so foggy. I had trouble remembering what day of the week it was. So I'd be sitting on the subway. I lived in Toronto at the time, and I would quite literally on the subway realize I have no idea where I am, and I have no idea what day of the week it is. And it was before smartphones, and I just really needed a calendar. That would have helped me a lot, but I didn't think of that. It's like 47-year-old Lisa is thinking back to my 20 when I was 24, thinking, why didn't you just write it down? And I was so unwell when I left school, a credit and a half shy from graduating. I just couldn't do it any longer. And
Yeah.
I lucked out and got a job working for a supplement company. And their main product was this green whole food product. And while I had gone to dozens of doctors trying to figure out what was wrong with me and that nobody could figure it out, nobody asked me what I ate. And what I ate was sugar all the time. I had like, there was a vegetable a month in my diet. And I had never put those two together until I started working for this company. I was in customer service. So my job was to answer the phones and answer product and nutrition questions. And I started taking the product. And 2 weeks later, my brain turned back on. It was like I woke up one morning and I could think again, and it had been almost 10 years at this point since I was really, really clear. And I forgot that I love learning things. It'd been so hard for so long that I forgot my natural state was to learn stuff. And so in the 2 years I worked in that job, I dove in and I absolutely loved learning as much as I could. But I'm a driven person. So I was like, I don't want to stay in customer service. So I tried a few different jobs. And what I missed was the one-on-one, that like face-to-face conversation and helping people figure themselves out. So I went back to school and did night school for nutrition while I was still working full time. I graduated at the top of my class, and that I'm not saying that to brag, but just to say the power of eating allowed me to
Yes.
go from
Yes.
like I couldn't finish my degree to I was the top of my class a handful of years later. It was 3 maybe. And by the time I graduated, I knew what I wanted to do more than anything is work one-on-one with people. And so I quit my job and moved across the country to BC to start up because I don't know, I needed an extra challenge of no footing. And that was in 2008. And I started practicing in January 2009. And I've been doing this full time since. And I'm not tired of the puzzle yet. Every single person I work with is this new puzzle I get to work out
Mhm.
to find what is going on with them, but also what does their body want. And I've worked with a few thousand people at this point, and I can't see this ending anytime soon because I'm still having so much fun doing it. And I get to talk on social media and I get to have interviews like this. And it's just, yeah, it's the best job ever.
Oh,
And I still get to play music. So I also regained my ability to play in my 30s. I played with the Okanagan Symphony for a handful of years. I have a band now. And so I still get that side of me that I really, really missed, but I had to give up for a while because I was just so unwell.
yes. Wow. Okay, you and I are going to have the music conversation separate of this chat because I was a flautist in Toronto about the same time you were.
No
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. You were doing far more interesting things with it. I finished at high school and went on and did something else, but it would have
That's
been
so
about the
cool.
same years. We probably had the same guy servicing our flutes at Long and McLeod in downtown Toronto, right? Do you remember
Probably.
him?
Yeah. 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 The
I could
flute
see
guy.
his, yeah, I could see his face, but I can't remember his name because God knows it was so many years ago. But
And it was so
um,
expensive.
oh my, it was. And yet, all of a sudden, I didn't have a percussion sound when I was playing my flute.
Yeah.
Anyways,
There's still only 2 flute people in Canada.
is that right?
Yeah. You can actually travel to Thailand and get your flute fixed there from a specialist for less than how much it costs to have a flute specialist work on it.
Wow. And
Yeah.
travel to Thailand.
And you try
And
to, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And if you threw some kind of a business event and played the flute for a few minutes, then it would be a tax write-off. Okay, I forget this is recording. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, Lisa and I will have a conversation, social chat later about that. Okay, there's so many things I want to pick up, but the puzzle of health is what you'd referred to, the puzzle of what people's bodies need. Sort of lends itself to the conversation about bioindividuality. And what I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. What does that mean to you when you talk about the puzzle?
It's a deep respect that each person is different, that my way of taking care of my body is unique to me. And if I, just because it works for me, I could force that on everybody that I work with and say, you need to eat this way because it works for me. But I've worked with enough people to see that that's never true. And that what works for me is never the same as what works for somebody else. But when we discover what our body wants, it is like a true sense of body autonomy. You know, this is my body and I take care of it. And I think that is one of the most powerful statements that we can say. And what that does is it takes the authority away from somebody else and brings it into ourselves. The problem is that we all grew up through diet culture. We all grew up in the 80s and 90s where stick thin and low fat and all of that, like that became our norm. And so from a teenager on, we stopped looking and relying on ourselves and started looking outside. And so this is a skill that we have to relearn. So it's like, so any listener, if you're feeling like, I have no idea where to start with that, I don't know how to feed myself, that's okay. We can absolutely learn it. Your body is giving you signals all the time. You just need to learn the language of it. Cravings are an easy place to start. And when we learn that, when we go through this process, food stops becoming a big deal. You stop, that food noise quiets down because you stop having to overthink things. Instead, it's like, I really feel like sweet potatoes right now. I don't need to know why. I want some chocolate right now. I don't need to know why, because you trust that your body is giving you signals and you feel so good that you know you can trust these signals. And I think it's really powerful. And my work is to work out of their lives, that they don't need me anymore because they don't need an authority, but I am here with them until they get that. And
Yes.
some people have like a lot of body symptoms, like they're in burnout or digestive symptoms. We got to deal with those first, and then we learn the body. And yeah, it's really, really fun as well.
I love that. And your passion shows through, which I absolutely love. I think that makes the biggest difference. As we were talking about TikTok before we started the recording, it's that authenticity piece. When you're just sharing from a place of just love and interest in somebody else doing as well as you have from the information that you've gleaned, it's like it's like bees to honey, right? People are going to come to you. They're going to find you. Okay, so let's go to this cravings thing, etc. I know this is a conversation I have in the office often with patients because they're always like, well, what do you do for this? And what do you do? And I was like, well, this is me, but this might not be for you. For example, some people can thrive as vegetarians. I have tried, it is not for me. If I go meatitarian, or I guess we're calling it carnivore or keto, that doesn't feel good for me either. So I'm
Yeah.
somewhere right in the middle. So, we've got all of these signals in social media and on our streaming platforms that say, "Oh, you've got to be this and you've got to be that." And it's a recipe for disaster, is it not?
100%, especially when we tie our personality to our way of eating. And then it becomes hard to shift when you need to shift.
Ooh, that's
Uh,
big. What you just said is huge. That's
well,
huge.
you just have to watch the influencers that tie their entire business to it. I really feel for them because there's going to be a moment where their body says, hey, like the doctor carnivore has to eat vegetables. That must have been a really hard thing to admit. And I feel for him. And our bodies always win. They always get what they want. That's why diets don't work. That's why you fall off. And for the listeners, I'm using air quotes. You fall off a diet that is literally your body saying, this isn't working. I can't deal with this restriction. Please, I need, and then it will ask for all of the things that you've restricted and it'll feel out of control. And this is just the body trying to recalibrate. But because we come with so much judgment and feeling like we failed, it was the diet that failed. You
Yes.
did nothing but work really hard at it. And your body is trying to save you and save your life. And it is really hard when you're in that back and forth. And I work with a lot of people through that back and forth. But the reason why I love cravings is so many body signals can get quieter as you ignore them. So hunger goes away, fullness goes
Thirst.
away. There's a
Yep.
lot of really like, it's very easy to cut your head off if your head is in charge and your body just like, you just kind of go through the motions. But cravings, Cravings get louder the more you ignore them. And so therefore they are a language we can start with. And what I have found is while there is differences in certain cravings in certain people, there are some really good basis. Like dark chocolate is more often than not a magnesium craving because it's really high in magnesium. Salt is more often than not a salt craving because you're either really dehydrated or you actually need this very important mineral. And just working with thousands of people, I've seen these patterns where while it's not 100%, it's close enough that we can start the experiment. And it is that body signal that is loud and requires willpower to quiet. So instead of using willpower to quiet it, let's be curious and say, okay, body, what are you looking for here? What do you want? And when we exchange willpower and judgment for curiosity and let your brain be the decipher of body signals instead of the controller of body signals, life changes.
Yes, I love that. Okay, I can hear the ladies in my community asking, what does it mean when you have a sugar craving, though? Let's talk about that.
So sugar has a few different things. So
Okay.
the first thing to keep in mind, especially if your sugar cravings are at night, is that when your body feels underfed, it will ask for the thing it knows it can talk you into and can talk you into when you're exhausted. So the evening, your energy's down, the cortisol has finally fallen, you take a deep breath, you're sitting on the couch and your body says, you haven't fed me today, or you've not come close to feeding me enough. Can you remember about, and then name the food you love, cookies, ice cream, what have you, and we'll ask for that only when you haven't eaten enough. And that is almost 100%. It's at about 90% in people. There are emotional cravings that can come up at this point, but your body will use emotion to get what it needs. So sometimes what feels fully like an emotional craving because you feel full, you just ate dinner, is still, if we actually track it, if we actually look at the day, is more often than not, you didn't eat enough. And so if we fix that, then all that's left are the emotional cravings. And then you can tackle them on their own with your therapist. But when we are mixing up a physical craving for an emotional craving, it just becomes a harder thing to deal with. So that's the first reason why we crave sugar. The second one is carbs are out of fashion. And women, especially in perimenopause and menopause, require carbohydrates to make hormones and for energy production. And it's really stressful to go low carb. So if you go low carb in a time your body desperately needs carbs, then it's going to just ask for sugar all the time because it can't talk you into a sweet potato, but can talk you into candy or whatever food you really love. And then the third reason I see for sugar cravings is a pain connection. And this one I cannot explain scientifically because it takes like a crumb of sugar to trigger this. But pain, what I can describe scientifically is pain does eat up a lot of serotonin. And when you eat sugar, you get a serotonin boost. What I have seen is pain asks for sugar, particularly candy. That is the most common pain signal. But then sugar triggers more pain. And that is where just a sprinkling, it doesn't take much to trigger more pain. What I have seen in about 200 to 300 cases, and then I've posted this on TikTok a few times with big viral videos, and the comments are full of people who have had the same experience. When you take refined sugar out, not everything sweet, just refined sugar out for 4 days, pain can drop sometimes as much as an 8 out of 10 pain can drop to a 2. I've seen people go off big time painkillers by taking sugar out of their diet. When you know this, then it becomes a choice. I'm not telling anybody to stop eating sugar, but when you eat it, just know your pain's going to be loud for 3 days afterwards. And if that's worth it, go for it. But when we know what the connection is, when we know pain is asking for the sugar, and I could have maple syrup or honey or fruit instead, it becomes an easier choice when you know how big of a pain reduction it is. And because it's only 4 days, it's actually doable. It's not like you have to do this for a month and see how you go. It's 4 days, replace it with other things that are sweet because your body still needs that serotonin boost. But it is quite dramatic. So those are the 3 main reasons that I see the body asking for sugar.
That's so interesting. I recently had this experience myself, and I consider myself a fairly aware person of nutrition, etc. And I had a muscle spasm, and it took a few days to recover. But what was happening was I'd come home from a long clinic day, and I was so tired. I couldn't even imagine how I was going to drag myself up the stairs to go to bed because, pain is exhausting. And
Exhausting.
it is exhausting. And I sat on the couch and I ate carbs. I wasn't even hungry. I was like, oh, there's leftover pizza. I'll have that. Oh, there's sourdough bread. Now, for those of you that listen to the show, I'm gluten free. So for me to have sourdough bread, that meant I was crossing over some barriers because I do have an allergy to it. So, and then of course that creates more pain. So
Yeah.
sometimes, Lisa, we need a reminder of these things,
Yeah,
don't
but
we?
also just in that moment, say, of course, I worked really hard. I didn't eat enough.
I didn't eat
My
enough.
body is
Yeah.
screaming, and
Yeah.
so much so it can convince me to eat pizza. Like that's not a
Yeah.
judgment. That is a wow. That is so
No,
powerful.
totally. Because I wasn't even hungry. But what I was tired
Yeah,
and sore. And so I
yeah,
wanted soothing. So then there was
yeah,
the emotional component of it. And I
yeah.
figured out, now let me just be clear, the pizza was gluten free. The sourdough bread, no, not so
Mhm.
much, but at least it was a proper ferment on the sourdough. But, so again, you can make excuses for all kinds of reasons. But at the end of it, I sat there and thought, I didn't just eat necessarily because I was hungry. I ate because I wanted to be soothed.
Yeah,
And I think we
yeah,
do that a lot.
yeah. As well as your body was afraid that you're about to go to bed and you haven't eaten enough during the day. So while you weren't hungry, your body
Yeah.
didn't have the resources it needed to go through the night often.
Well, and I love that you said that because one of the things I'm playing with right now, I look at the research on what we need for protein and building muscle mass, and I'm trying like hell to get to that 120, 130 ounces grams of
Grams. Yeah.
grams of protein a day. And I don't get there very often.
It's so
So
hard.
if we go back to where, let's talk about that here, but if we go back to that day where I sat on the couch eating the leftover pizza and having sourdough bread, I had eaten almost nothing but protein and fat at that point, except for my greens drink in the morning. And
Yeah.
I had loaded my lunch kit with beef jerky and nuts and like all of and then my regular lunch, which of course was meat forward, very meat forward. And so that's exactly what happened. I'm realizing now as
Mhm.
we're having this conversation, oh, you're good. I'm not
Yeah.
hiding anything from you, am I?
It's just a puzzle and there's always an answer. And I've seen the pattern so many times. One story that comes to mind that is also something I've just seen dozens and dozens of times is a client who came to me and she's like, I have a sugar addiction. And I said, tell me about it. And every night, every day after work, she'd go to a store and buy a bag of candy and eat the whole thing before dinner. And when I actually looked at her life, she was training with a trainer. She owned her own business and ran it with multiple employees. And I'm like, how much are you eating in the day? And the trainer had her on a 1,200 calorie a day diet. She actually needed
Oh,
3,000 with the amount of training she
wow.
was doing. And so when we actually tracked it,
Holy
the only
cow.
time she craved candy was when she underate, and it was actually exactly the amount of food she needed to get to the calorie count that her body actually required for the day. And like, it wasn't an addiction, it was a fixing. Your body is fixing it. It just feels addictive because you don't have any willpower to stop it, and your body knows that's why it asked for the candy.
And how liberating that is to just say, because for those of us, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, that were raised in that diet culture of the 1980s, it's it takes zero trigger effort at all for us to go back into those old pathways of self-flagellation.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with you? Can't you just keep your mouth shut?
Yeah.
Oh, you need to go out and run around the block. All of those horrible things that we watched our mothers say to them. Our mothers were
Yeah.
saying that about themselves and then teaching us the same thing. So it doesn't take much to get us
Absolutely.
there.
No. And so as soon as I hate the word should, should is like, if you tell me what I should do, I will tell you all the reasons I shouldn't. It's a trigger word for me. And when we should on ourselves, if you notice the word, I shouldn't be doing this,
Mhm.
catch that and say, oh, maybe I need to look at why. Like, let's be curious instead. And right across the board, especially in athletes and people who are training, sugar cravings come up every single time they haven't eaten enough. And the clients that I have that really abide by that, I'll get emails saying, I was just about to judge myself for all my kids' candy I just ate. And then I realized I haven't come close to eating enough and I've upped my training. I was like, yeah, there's
Oh,
always a pattern.
yes. And so when you see it and you go, okay, I haven't eaten enough, permission granted to go eat to nourish yourself, babe.
Yeah.
Like seriously,
Yeah.
it's not a judgment thing. It's literally like give your body what it needs.
Mm-hmm.
How liberating is that?
Yeah, and the body would like it in Whole Foods, but we'll
Sure.
take it as candy if that's all it can get, because it can't talk. It's tried to talk you into eating more and you're ignoring it. So it's just going to take a moment of quiet, of low energy, of low willpower, and say, hey, remember your kids have a bunch of Halloween candy.
Oof. And it's the highly palatable foods that your brain goes, oh yeah, I'm going for that
It's
right away.
tried. Like I know your body has tried to talk you into something healthier, but it's too easy to say no to that. And therefore it's just like, okay, I'm going to pull out all your favorites because I need food and I can't talk you into anything else.
Wow. I think we're looking at this whole thing wrong. So thank you for sharing that and liberating it. Let's come back to sugar cravings for a second, because I want to talk to you about blood sugar. And for those listening, I'm not talking about diabetics. This does apply to diabetics, but it literally applies to every single one of us. And I think so often we hear blood sugar and we think, oh, that's not for me,
Mhm.
but it's a matter of just explaining things. So again, I want to just put aside blood sugar for a teensy minute, but I just want to I want to make mention of this. The sugar cravings do come up when you've had a load of carbs and then it drops down again,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden you have that trigger for eating more sugary things.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the fourth one I missed when we
Yeah.
talked about sugar cravings is low blood sugar will
Yes.
100% trigger sugar cravings. And I actually do something really unconventional when I feel my blood sugar is a bit too low. Say I've gone too long before lunch, like my lunch is at noon every day. I have a stomach alarm and it goes off, but my body doesn't like it if I say, yeah, but let me just finish this and keep going. And my blood sugar will be a little too low when I go to make lunch if I wait a half an hour or 45 minutes. So I'll actually have a piece of chocolate while I'm making lunch to pull my blood sugar back up. So I'm not eating lunch in a low blood sugar state. Because it takes about 10 or 15 minutes at best for your blood sugar to respond to what you're eating, a little faster if it's sweet, a little slower if it's all whole foods. And your body is in panic mode and will just want you to keep eating until your blood sugar's up. And then you'll go past full. You won't even have like the wherewithal to see that you actually ate more than enough in that meal. And so fixing my blood sugar before I sit down to a meal has been liberating, because that low is always going to be demanding. And that's not actually real hunger. Real hunger isn't demanding. And so all you have to do is look at how you're feeling and say, is this low blood sugar or is this hunger?
Oh, that's so interesting. Separating blood sugar and hunger. Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
I can
Okay,
do it really simply
please.
if you want it. So
Yes.
hunger is never demanding. It's a slight dip in energy, a slight hollowness in your body, and a feeling like, maybe in the next hour I should eat something. Some of the listeners have never felt that, because low blood sugar is really common, and that can happen either due to a spike or you've just gone too long without eating. And low blood sugar is everything else. It's demanding, it's emotional, hangry. It can cause physical symptoms like feeling shaky or unwell or a headache. Anything that's around hunger that is demanding, physical or emotional, is low blood sugar. So fix that before you sit down to eat.
Ooh, I love that. I'm taking notes. For those of you listening that have heard the term, or you've heard your doctor say the term hypoglycemia, that's what we're talking about when we say low blood sugar. Okay, let's put a pin on in the nutrition conversation for a second, because I want to come and tell you the story of how I found you
Hmm.
and bring it back and ask you to tell us about your tricks on protein consumption, because God knows that's a big one. Okay. So scrolling Instagram one day, by the way, I feel very fortunate. I have the most amazing guests that want to come on the show and they find me. So very rarely do I ever find myself reaching out to somebody to say, you're amazing. I want you on my show. Okay. But I happened to see you on Instagram. And I can't remember if this was late in 2024 or early 2025. And because I sent you a message on Instagram as I recall. Yeah. So I saw you shit disturbing in your reel. And I was like, who is this person? And I have to have her on the show immediately. Do you know which bit of content I'm talking about before I
No,
no.
I
Okay.
do a bit of shit disturbing, so I'm not
I
sure which one it was.
Perfect. Yes, I'm a shit disturber myself. Well, I have actually printed off the quote because you talked about, you shared a Naomi Wolf quote.
I know that
Okay.
one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read it for the listeners now. Actually, let me just read it. So this was you, Lisa Kilgour, saying this on your Instagram, quoting Naomi Wolf. A cultural fixation on women's thinness is not an obsession with female beauty, but an obsession with female obedience. Dieting is the most potent political sedative in women's history. A quietly mad population is a tractable one.
Yeah.
What? Holy shit.
It still gives me
Really?
goosebumps when I hear it. Yeah.
There's so much to say. First of all, this quote is from a book called The Beauty Myth. When I actually wrote it, I read it shortly after she wrote it back in like 1993, 1994, when I was in university the first time. And I happened to come across it in my university bookstore, and I was like, I need to read this book. I did not understand what I was reading, but it was deeply influential to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so to hear you quote it, it was like all this flood of all this sort of early feminism for me came flooding back in. And I went, you have those moments in your life where you're like, oh, is that why I think the way I do, when I was deeply influenced at such a young
Mm-hmm.
age. But the conversation around female obedience and female thinness, I think, is such an interesting discussion to have. And now you've had several months since you posted that. What has been the reaction from your community on this topic?
It's been really positive and really huge. So when I have a video go viral, I stop looking at the comments often because that's just good self-care. Just like anybody who is trying
Uh-huh.
social media, what you do is when a video goes viral, you stop looking at the comments. They're beautiful up until a certain point, and then they go into a different realm, except for this video. And it's a combination of women who have done their own inner work around dieting and say, yes, absolutely. And others who are like, oh my God, holy shit, I never thought of this. Because dieting culture has trained us to believe that the purpose of it is your own health. But that's not true. It doesn't make you
Wow.
healthy. I work with people who dieted their entire lives and they're now in their 70s and their body is not healthier due to the dieting. Their body, instead, their bones are weaker, their muscles are weaker, their ability to even understand what their body wants is so quiet it's almost impossible to hear. It's never too late to change it, but there's really huge repercussions to low calorie diets and any type of restriction. And to know that she wrote this 30 years ago and it's in this moment right now that people are waking up to it, like she is so ahead of her time, because this was a time where people were still like full in dieting culture.
Oh
And
yeah.
I just love that in this moment, we're starting to shift. Like I wrote my book Undieting 5 years ago and it was crickets at the time. And I thought, wow, it's just ahead of its time. Like Naomi was 30 years ahead of her time. And,
Yes.
and there's just so much power to all of us waking up, especially in this moment of political upheaval,
Mhm.
especially like right now. If
Yes.
we just say, my focus is health, because not
Yes.
every body is supposed to be a size 2.
Yeah.
The BMI is so much bullshit. It shouldn't be used in doctor's offices. It was never meant to be used in doctor's offices and does not show your own health. It's wildly inaccurate in women. And just the idea that still to this day, women can't get proper health care if their body size is a little too big, because it's just everything is assumed like your if we even just bring it to blood sugar, which feels like it should be this 1 + 1 = 2, I am holding on to more weight than I should, again air quotes, therefore my blood sugar is high. No, your blood sugar is high and therefore your body is holding on to more weight than maybe it wants. Fixing the
Mm.
blood sugar problem is the thing, not losing weight is the thing. And our body size, first, is incredibly unique to each one of us. And secondly, is a symptom. If it's out of balance, that is a symptom of something else, not the symptom of itself. Sorry, I'm getting on a tangent now on my soapbox, but it just makes me so sad
Please
and so
keep going.
angry. I just,
Yes.
it drives me crazy that so many of my clients have gotten no help for things like endometriosis and perimenopausal symptoms and like big deal things, all because
Yes.
their doctor won't talk to them because their body size is bigger than they think it should be.
Yeah.
And like, oh my gosh, it's
Don't
just,
even have words for that.
I
Here's the one.
don't.
Here's the one I see all the time in my practice is women needing hips and knees replaced, and doctors saying, "Well, if you lose 100 pounds, I'll get you a consult." How are you supposed to lose 100 pounds when your hips and knees don't work? Would
Yeah.
never say that to a guy. It's bananas that they do.
And that restrictive diet required to lose 100 pounds is not going to be nice to your joints and your muscles. Our
No.
bodies are, for biological reasons, our bodies prioritize fat over muscle and bone. And so therefore, like when you go on a restrictive diet, you lose muscle first and you gain back fat first. And so what I am seeing in my clients over 60 is higher rates of osteoporosis and joint issues than maybe they would have. It's hard to know because we don't have two people with the same body going through life.
Yeah.
But a restrictive diet will cause frailty. And what do we want in our 70s and 80s is strong. And
Strength.
that's
Yes.
this moment in social media I love because there's so many big
Me
names
too.
talking about the importance of muscle. That's all I talk about with my clients. If they were looking to change their body size, which I believe in body autonomy, that is your decision. If we've dealt with everything else and we can look at that, but it's all about strength. We don't look at restriction. We don't look at fat loss. We look at how do we build muscle, because that will raise your metabolism. That will keep your bones strong. That is what's going to keep you living in your own house as long as possible. But if we only focus on weight loss, then the body will lose that muscle and lose that bone. And I can't do that to someone. I can't do something that ethically I know is going to cause more harm than good.
And yet we have allowed it in several disciplines for decades.
Yeah.
So thankfully, women like you and I and others are becoming aware, and we're sharing with the other women. We're making changes in the
Yeah.
community because isn't not the most liberating thing on the planet to think about the food you eat for strength instead of
Yeah.
thinness.
Totally.
I love that
Building up
one.
versus building down. Like, yes,
Yes.
100%. Yeah. And we need to be loud about this. Like, we need to like do some serious shit disturbing. And I love
Yep.
that there's a lot of people doing it because we just need to make this, we need to change the conversation. And the fact that skinny talk still exists, which social media knows better than to show me anything with skinny talk. But in a
Yep.
podcast interview, it was brought up recently. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that even exists. And thankfully, my TikTok algorithm knows better than to show me it. But
Mine too.
I think it is the like final cry of the dieting culture. Let's make it the final cry because things have to get loud when they think they're losing control. And it's like, let's make
Yes.
it be the last we hear about things like skinny talk.
Yes, I love that. So I realized when Naomi Wolf had written The Beauty Myth, it basically was in the time where we were still very much in the diet industry. And here's what I can tell you. Just when you said that, I realized, oh my God, I was probably reading Susan Powter's book at the same time I was reading The Beauty Myth. Like that literally was the era. I remember all the fat-free muffins, and then it turns out that she was a functional alcoholic. So even though and this was part because I mean, alcohol is just sugar, right? So she was getting fuel from liquor and not really thinking, we can just do these huge diet restrictions. Bless her heart. I'm sure we've all got things to learn. I certainly did the low fat dieting back then too. So we got smart about it. I remember someone saying to me, like, look at your little Snackwell cookies and see what the number one ingredient is: sugar. When you
Yeah.
take fat out, you have to put other things in. You put
Yeah.
chemicals in there and
Mm-hmm.
lots of sugar to make it feel good in your
Yeah.
mouth.
And we developed major blood sugar issues. Like blood sugar
Yes.
became, and like the growth of type 2 diabetes was massive in the 80s and 90s, all because we took away the thing that stabilizes blood sugar, fat, and we
Yeah.
added refined sugar in its place to make it palatable.
Oh my God, I love it. Protein and healthy muscle are the organ of longevity. Do you struggle to put on muscle, lose weight, or get enough protein each day? It's a common concern, but there's help. I prefer Keon Aminos to get my daily essential amino acids. Keon Aminos ensures you're getting the essential amino acids from protein your body needs to rebuild muscle, recovery, keep energetic, and be strong. Kion Aminos is a clean source, transparent formula that gets mixed into water and tastes good. It's suitable for all diets, is gluten-free and dairy-free. It helps me feel full and hydrated and ready to go. I feel strong and I recover from activity quicker when my protein tank is full. Would you like to get better protein intake and supplement with Kion Aminos? Please go to getkion.com/lovely, where Kion is offering 20% off for listeners of the show. There's a risk-free 60-day money-back guarantee. That's getkion.com/lovely. And I'll drop the link in the show notes. Thanks, Kion. Okay. By the way, I did pick up another Naomi Wolf quote while I was doing the research for this. And she also in the Beauty Myth says, women are allowed a mind or a body, but not both. Woo!
Oh. Oh, that gave me goosebumps too. That is so true.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. You got that right. Okay, that's for the next podcast we do, Lisa.
Let's do that. I really want to talk about that. Yeah.
Right? Okay. I'll make sure to put that quote in the show notes so you guys can take a look. I think that book stands the test of time. I'd be interested to read it now. I might still have my old copy from all those years ago, but I want to thank you for reminding me of the power of those words for me as a young woman. And like I said, when you said it, I was like, whoa, we got to have this conversation. And I want to bring up another conversation I had with another female practitioner last year who said to me, I don't know what we were talking about, probably something related to the GLP-1s and how that's really changing the industry, the diet industry, our understanding of obesity and treating obesity and all of the cluster that goes along with that. But she said to me, Fiona, isn't it interesting that every time women get a little power, they reintroduce the waif look? I was like, whoa, is that a thing? She's like, oh yeah, have you not noticed? And then I found you.
Huge. Yeah. Well, think about like the last time like the super wave of the late 90s, early aughts. And that was at like, so Naomi Wolf was writing her book and publishing in the early to mid 90s. I was a teenager through all of that. And I was in a naturally thin body that felt fat. And like crazy. It's just unbelievable because the look was so much thinner than what a body can actually do in a healthy way. The heroin chic that was in like teen Vogue magazines, it was just like horrifying. And yeah, like if now that we're hip to it, now that we get it, we can say, oh, look what you're trying to do. You think we're powerful. Fantastic. So like, let's all of us reframe that of like every single time we see something about getting as skinny as possible, think that means we're powerful. That means the powers that be want to push us down, and let's reclaim that. Like, I think there's power in awareness.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Oh, we could go on about that one. You know, I know I've talked about this on the show, not with you before, but Apple TV interviewed the supermodels. It was Christy, Naomi, Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista. I think that was who it was. And it was so interesting because I was really into fashion and all of that stuff in the 90s, right? So I was watching You're Canadian fashion television with Jeannie Becker, thinking that I could look like the women on the runway, even though I'm Scottish German. Like, what do you think? No, that's not happening. We have stocky bodies.
Look at your wrist.
Yes, exactly. I know.
You can't suddenly have a wave wrist.
Not to mention I'm 5'5", so it ain't happening. Those women are like six inches at least taller than me, right? Which automatically stretches everything out. Anyways, it was so interesting with my probably 50-year-old mind, because I think it was last year, the year before that this came out. It was so interesting to watch these women and to have them talk about their experiences. And I remember certain things and to just feel my own shift in, well, first of all, they talk about, of course, how devastating it was to just eat as little as they did, and you had to have a certain aesthetic and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And not all of them are like that. Some of them naturally like that. It just depends. But just a tiny percent of the population, right, can
Yeah.
do that.
Itty bitty,
Yeah,
tiny.
exactly. But as a kid, I thought, oh, for sure that could be me. If I just starve myself, I'll be there. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a kindness when I got to watch it that went, oh no, sweetheart. Like I went back to my 14-year-old self and said, that was never going to happen, babe. It's okay.
Yeah.
You didn't fail. It's okay.
No, I know. And it's like, and it was never possible. And the fact that they could sell it to us as a possibility for everyone, as
Yeah.
like a aspirational
Yes.
aesthetic. No.
Yeah, I know. And it's so when I see it with my wise eyes, I see how messed up it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do. I really do. Okay, let's come back to thank you for letting me take that little
Oh,
detour. I couldn't
it
get
was a good
we had
detour.
to talk about Naomi Wolf. It had to happen.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you brought it up, actually.
I'm well familiar with the shit disturbers on this podcast. I have one myself, so you
I
are
love it.
always welcome in this community. People pleasing is not something we do around here. I would please ourselves, I suppose. Okay, let's come back to this protein thing because we are supposed to consume, we should
Yep.
consume. Uh, it's an ounce of protein for every pound of ideal body weight
A
for
gram,
women.
not an
A
ounce, but
gram.
yeah.
I
It,
get that one wrong all the time. It's a gram. Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
I don't know of anyone who can do it
Okay,
without
say that again,
products.
please.
I don't
Yes.
know of anybody who can actually do it
Okay.
without a product.
Yes.
So my question is what are they selling?
Okay.
I believe that protein is important. I believe that like we do need protein to create muscles. Like I don't want to poo poo the idea of protein. I do know that our ability to assimilate protein can stop or lower as we get older, but also I specialize in weird digestive issues. I get the digestive system, and digesting whole proteins, especially meats, at 150 grams a day is really straining on the stomach. Our stomach,
And kidneys.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Our stomach is like, this is the organ stomach, not, we usually call the whole digestive or the whole gut the stomach. I'm talking the actual organ of the stomach. It requires a high acid environment to break down that protein. You have to chew it really, really well. You have to be as relaxed as possible while eating. And none of us are. And so
Yeah, I was gonna
yeah.
say, who's
So by the
that?
time we're in our 40s, one of the reasons why acid reflux gets loud is that our stomach acid actually lowers. We have a weak
Yeah.
stomach. And the stomach is the only part of the digestive system that our brain actually controls. The rest of our digestive system, our small intestine, our pancreas, our gall, all of that, our colon is managed by the enteric nervous system. It is an autonomic nervous system around our gut. It is a wildly amazing nervous system. Like it's called the second brain because it is so intricate. But our stomach is controlled by our brain. And the reason for that is when we're under stress, our body wants to make sure we're not using energy unnecessarily. And digestion takes like 60% of your energy. So if you've ever felt nauseous when you are stressed out, it's because your body is trying to eject the food in your stomach. So that's a loud version of it. A quiet version of it is your brain doesn't put the energy into your stomach to be able to digest all that food. So I take very stressed out women and then put on the expectation of digesting 150 grams of protein a day that needs to be chewed and like swallowed and acid needs to break. No, it's just not possible. And so I tend to say, okay, our blood sugar is a bit more unstable in perimenopause and menopause due to hormone fluctuations. Protein is a really great way that's both satiating as well as blood sugar balancing and important for our body. And then I put on something reasonable, which is like 80, 70 to 90 grams. That everybody can do it. It requires still some thinking, but it doesn't require an impossibility that every day you're going to feel guilty that you didn't hit. Some people's bodies require like the natural vegetarian, the vegetarian who's been a vegetarian for 30 years and feels like $1 million does not even need 60 to 80 grams of protein a day. Then there is the people who are like, I can't, my body won't let me be a vegetarian. It doesn't work for me. I need more meat than that. Therefore, I need more protein than that. But like, my stomach is too weak for 150 grams. My body requires starches to function. My body's favorite food is like fat drizzled root vegetables. And like, if I'm going to feel like $1,000,000, that's how I do it. Protein can't be such a star that I'm hitting 150 grams. What we do as humans is we make a macronutrient a star and we make another one a villain. So in the 80s, it was carbs were the star and fat was the villain. In the early aughts, protein became the star and carbs became the villain. And we are possibly at the cusp of it flipping again, and fat's going to be the star and protein's going to be the villain. It is a requirement of humans to, well, it's not a requirement of humans, it's a requirement of industry to have something that's vilified and something that's a star so we can sell a bunch of stuff. And so while I do not question the focus on protein, I question this number of 150 grams. Where did it come from? I haven't seen any studies. What if there are studies on it? Because I don't see every study, so there could be studies on it. How did they do that? Because the clients that I've worked with who have followed diets in the past where they have hit that level were just stuffed all the time and they hated the look of food. So does it require protein powder? Well, protein powder is a refined food. It is a tool. It can be helpful in certain circumstances, but it's a refined protein as much as, and I would argue this until my face turns blue, as refined sugar and refined flour are refined carbohydrates. They are both refined foods. Therefore, they have repercussions if we use a lot of it. So if in that 150 grams, 60 grams of that is in a refined protein, what is that doing to the body? What is it depleting in cofactors? What is it depleting in just digestibility? We were never meant to drink protein. That doesn't exist in nature. It makes people nauseous for that reason. And so, I'm on my soapbox again, but it is like, it's something that I love really upset by.
This is useful, Lisa. This is super useful because really it's very difficult. You're right. That 150 number. I mean, we're talking, correct me if I'm wrong. We're talking chicken breast is about 30, 32 grams.
25 is closer. Okay. 25 to 30, depending on the size.
So we're talking 5 of those a day or 6? Just, oh my God. Like that makes me think of Rocky Balboa drinking the cracked raw egg.
An egg is only 8.
Yes, I know eggs aren't nearly as good. Okay.
And they're wonderful. They're just like, it's just like, there isn't I've yet to find somebody.
Wonderful. Yes.
They're just not like, so when I look at that, I think, okay, when I watch somebody really feeding their body well, I feed my body well. I do not, I have never tracked my protein. I know for sure it's not 150 grams because I'm not working that hard at it. But my body's happy. I grow muscle. I feel good. My blood sugar's balanced. I don't feel any need to pay attention and say, okay, I need to fix this because there's no problem to fix. Okay. And so I encourage everybody listening to just first ask, is there a problem to fix? If your answer is yes, then maybe experiment with protein and find out what your sweet spot is. Don't just take advice because it's a should.
Okay. And I'm just as guilty of telling women that they need to make sure they're staying in that over 100 grams per day. So this is really helpful for me because what I've seen happen from even my own brain, I go, oh, okay, I got to get that. I'm not hungry, but I got to have a piece of beef jerky or got to have a protein shake. And then
when your digestion might be like, excuse me, I have not finished the last one. That's why there's no hunger signal.
Exactly. It's like, slow down. I just, this is really helpful for me because, once again, and I saw this happen quite a bit with the intermittent fasting trend. And I know I talked about it a lot. It is really helpful for a lot of things, including, neurodegeneration. I've seen it reverse neurodegeneration, etc. But that's an extreme case. Most women take that and they do some version of it, but then there's a certain group of women that it becomes now disordered eating in a way
Yeah.
that they were taught really early, and so their nervous
Mhm.
system goes, I remember this, but
Restrict.
I can't. Yes, exactly. Restrict,
Rules.
restrict, restrict, feel bad, awful,
Yeah.
shame, whatever,
Mhm.
because that's what we were taught about food in our bodies. But I can't help but wonder if this protein business is not going to be just another way that we do that. And as I
Yeah.
listen to you, I feel, oh shit, is this another tool from that whole women are obedient when they're thin thing? Oh
Yeah.
my God. Okay,
Can,
stop,
can I add one little piece to that?
please.
Because this
Please
is the most one of the most controversial things I say on social media.
bring it.
Carbs are a requirement for a thriving body, especially when you're a woman over 40. And when you're concentrating on 150 grams of protein, it's carbs that are going to go. And starches in particular both help make hormones, but are an incredibly important part of sleep. And so a lot of women who are eating high protein, like what I like about the idea of adding, it's adding, not subtracting. That at least we're not talking restriction, but it's squishing something out. And when you're taking out, like I'm putting back starches in my clients' meals all the time, and suddenly they can sleep and their stress level is lower and they just feel better and they're not craving sugar all the time. And so it's my worry about hitting that, like having that let's add extra protein, is what is it squishing out? Is it squishing out something that your body doesn't really want, or is it squishing out something that is really required? And because carbs are such a villain right now, and the current trend is talking about how unessential they are essential for a thriving body, though they're full of nutrients and they're important, that leads to like an imbalance.
Mm. And this is why your book is called Undieting,
Yes.
correct?
That's
I love
exactly
it.
why.
I love it. I sense you and I could talk all day, actually. This is quite,
I think we could, yeah.
yes, I think so. That'll be fun. We'll explore that in a minute. Please tell people where they can find out more about you, please, Lisa.
So you can find my website is my name, lisakilgour.com, or undieting.ca is also my book name that points you to my website. I'm also on social media on Instagram and TikTok at Lisa Kilgour Nutrition or Lisa Kilgour Nutritionist. I'm sure the handles will be in the show notes.
Yep.
There aren't many Lisa Kilgours in the world, so Google my name and you'll find it. And most of my content is video content. So if you like you're going to get more of this on my social media. And I do see clients one-on-one, but I also have a lot of, like, I have a group program and digital products. There's a lot of ways that you can interact with my philosophy in general.
I think your philosophy is fantastic.
Thank you.
I really do. It's so good. I feel liberated sitting here going, I know what I was planning for dinner, but it seems I need to add a little more carb in there and a
Yeah, get some
little less
sweet
protein.
potatoes. Get some sweet
Oh
potatoes in
man,
there.
I love sweet potatoes
So
and
do I. That's my
beets.
best food in the world.
Yeah, they really are. Beets, roasted beets are
Oh,
like Mother Nature's candy.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
100% agree. Covered in butter and olive oil.
Yeah. I
My body loves fatty things.
loves it. And I like them olive oil roasted and then balsamic vinegar to finish. Just a
Oh,
little
that's good.
tang. And then
Yeah.
it gets all syrupy in there.
Yeah.
Oh, my mouth waters just thinking
I
about
know
it.
whoever's hungry right now is not liking us very much.
You're like, we were on our way to have some pizza because she
Yeah.
talked about pizza first. Okay, to my listeners, I hope you have gotten as much out of this conversation from Lisa with Lisa that I have. And Lisa, as I mentioned, we've got a couple of questions that we ask. The show asks at the end of every interview, and I'm going to hit you with those now. So, first thing is, imagine a world where we as women are offered a menopause leave by our government. Our government covers our expenses with replaces our income, and then gives us a stipend that says, "Here's a pool of money over this next year where you don't have to work. Your job is to take care of yourself as a woman in perimenopause and or menopause, and you can choose when you take this leave." Okay, what would you do with that year and that money?
Oh, I love this. First, I love the idea. This is like,
So good, right?
because like the last time the body went through this hormone transition, we were teenagers and didn't have to manage teenagers and
Yep.
life and have a job. So to
Yep.
leave that, it sounds amazing. So the first thing I would do is follow joy. I would chase aliveness. A colleague of mine and friend of mine has called it that. I'm like, I would go chase aliveness, and I would go to water, which is my favorite thing. So I would hit the Caribbean Sea and or some hot springs, and I would be in nature, and I would not take my phone and not take my laptop and just be and recover and feel, because the body knows how to manage this transition. It's hard inside the life that we have that's so stressful. And a lot of that is something I do on a daily basis anyways. I live in the middle of nowhere. I live near hot springs. I live near trees. And so I've worked this into my life. I would probably do it at the Caribbean Sea, which is my really big happy place.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. So, would you bring in any practitioners in particular?
Yeah, I would bring in acupuncture because my body loves acupuncture. I would bring in a naturopath that can do full assessments of my hormones and see what my body needs if there's an addition that's added. Um, but generally, my practitioner would be nature.
Mm, God, you were really meant for TikTok when you say things like that. So you need to go on the talk and talk about that right now. Okay.
Okay, I
But
will.
first things first, last question I ask all my guests is this. Knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Mm. Oh, that gave me goosebumps. I would let her know that a really amazing life is in her future, and that if there's a couple hard decisions to make between her life in a city that she didn't want to live in and the life that I live now, and a few hard years, but man, is it going to be amazing.
I feel that for you. I feel that.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us on the Not Your Mother's Menopause podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this conversation immensely.
Me too. Me too. The information and other content provided in this show, or in any linked materials, is not intended and should not be construed as medical advice, nor is the information a substitute for professional medical expertise or treatment. We are doctors, but we aren't your doctor. Seek your doctor's opinion. If you or any other person has a medical concern, you should consult with your healthcare provider or seek other professional medical treatment. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something that you have heard in this podcast or in any linked materials. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The opinions and views expressed on this page and in this show have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, health practice, or other institution. Thank you.